Fast fact, workers' compensation is available only to employees who are injured on the job. It is not the same as disability insurance or unemployment benefits. Special considerations. A claim for workers' compensation may be disputed by an employer. In that case, the Workers' Compensation Board may be asked to resolve the dispute. Disputes can arise over whether the employer is actually liable for an injury or illness. Workers' compensation payments are also susceptible to insurance fraud. An employee may falsely report that an injury was sustained on the job, exaggerate the severity of an injury, or invent an injury. In fact, the National Insurance Crime Board asserts that there are organized criminal conspiracies of crooked physicians, attorneys, and patients who submit false claims to medical insurance companies for workers' compensation and other benefits. Independent contractor exception. In most states, only regular employees are eligible for workers' compensation. Independent contractors are not. That was one of the main points of contention in the debate over a California ballot measure that sought to extend employee benefits to drivers for ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft. Like the so-called gig economy, the issue of workers' compensation and other benefits add for contract workers isn't going away. Like the so-called gig economy, the issue of workers' compensation and other benefits for contract workers isn't going away. In 2020, about 17 million Americans were working full-time as contractors and more than 34 million worked part-time or occasionally as contractors. Important. Access to workers' compensation benefits is a key issue for participants in the gig economy. Contractors and freelancers are rarely eligible. Types of workers' compensation in the U.S. Workers' compensation rules are handled by the individual states. The U.S. Department of Labor houses an Office of Workers' Compensation Programs, but it is responsible only for coverage of federal employees, longshoremen and harbor workers, energy employees, and coal miners. The lack of federal standards for workers' compensation has resulted in extremely varied policies for the same kinds of injuries from state to state. Identical injuries can receive radically different kinds of compensation depending on where a worker resides. A paper by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration (OSHA) flatly calls workers' compensation a broken system and estimates that 50% of the costs of workplace injury and illness are borne by the individuals who suffer them. Low wage and immigrant workers often don't even apply for benefits. Workers' compensation coverage AVS. Coverage B. There are two types of workers' compensation coverage: Coverage A and Coverage B. Coverage A includes all of the state-mandated benefits that an injured or ill employee is entitled to receive from the employer's insurance. It covers salary, replacement payments, as well as medical care, rehabilitation, and death benefits as necessary. All states except Texas have such benefits, although they vary widely from state to state, and many states exclude some employees from eligibility. Coverage B pays benefits that exceed the minimums required by Coverage A. They usually are paid only as the result of a successful lawsuit brought by the employee for negligence or other misconduct by the employer. Who pays workers' compensation insurance premiums? The employer pays workers' compensation insurance premiums. There is no payroll deduction as for Social Security benefits. The employer is required by law to pay workers' compensation benefits as established by individual state laws. How much does workers' compensation cost? The cost of workers' compensation insurance varies by state, as do the mandated benefits. There also are different rates depending on whether the employees covered are performing low-risk or high-risk jobs. The fees for the insurance are based on the company's payroll numbers. Just as examples, in California, workers' comp costs an average of 40 cents for every $100 in payroll for low-risk workers and $33.57 for high-risk jobs. In Florida, the average is 26 cents per $100 for low-risk jobs and $19.4 for high-risk jobs. In New York, the average is 7 cents per $100 for low-risk jobs and $29.93 per $100 for high-risk jobs. How do you apply for workers' compensation? The rules for applying for workers' compensation vary by state. In general, a worker with a job-related injury or illness should write down the details of the injury or illness in detail with photos and the names of witnesses. When possible, report the injury or illness to your employer. The employer should take it from there, filing your claim with the insurer. You can follow through with the employer's insurance company to make sure that a claim was filed. If your claim is denied, you can appeal the decision with your state's workers. If your claim is denied, you can appeal the decision with your state's workers' compensation board. Who is exempt from workers' compensation? Generally, only salaried employees are eligible for workers' compensation. Contractors and freelancers are not. Beyond that, every state writes its own rules. For example, Arkansas specifically excludes farm laborers and real estate agents from eligibility. Idaho excludes domestic workers. Louisiana excludes musicians and crop dusting airplane crew members. The bottom line, every state except Texas requires employers to provide workers compensation coverage to at least some of their employees. The states write the rules, so there are many exceptions and exemptions. Contractors and freelancers are rarely covered, and many states exclude certain professions from the mandate or otherwise limit the scope of the benefits. Most states have online sites that can help you determine if you're covered by workers' compensation insurance. For example, Florida's Division of Workers' Compensation has information on its program, links to the necessary forms, and a database that can tell you whether your employer has coverage. Trade on the go, anywhere, anytime. Sponsored. One of the world's largest crypto asset support while trading securely. You also, Exchanges is ready for you. Enjoy competitive fees and dedicated customer have access to Binance tools that make it easier than ever to view your trade history, manage auto investments, view price charts, and make conversions with zero. Just 15 years ago, one of the only ways for a trader to exchange their assets was by sitting down at a PC, logging into an account, and having to spend hours staring at a screen. These days, however, a lot has changed, and with the advancement of technologies, you can now sit back and enjoy the potential to trade Forex and more on a smartphone, laptop, or even via a smartwatch. Thanks for watching my video. Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for watch more informative video.